Take a deep breath in, then slowly exhale all the stress out of your body. That calm you're feeling right now? That's what you get with HubSpot. Their all-on-one customer platform takes all the chaos of business and replaces it with one single powerful platform for all your teams. Generate better leads for marketing, close more deals for sales, and earn more 5-star reviews for service. So don't hold your breath. Visit HubSpot.com to learn more today.
You're a first-time founder, first-time CEO, first-time sales leader, first-time marketing leader, and you've crushed the seed stage of your business. Congrats. You got the $10 million Series A check, and now you're at your board meeting. The multi-decade venture capitalist is feeding you with advice and counsel, and you take it. The problem is, it's sometimes wrong. How do you know? You've never been in this seat before. In this episode of The Science of Scaling, we call on my friend Jen Grant. Jen has multiple roles in the go-to-market executive side, multiple roles in the CEO, founder, COO side, and multiple roles as an independent board member. She's seen every angle of this equation, and she's going to help us decipher if the advice is right. And if it's not, how do you push back? And how do you create synergy across your executive team, yourself, and your board to lead to the success in your business that you want? I'm Mark Roberge, and this is The Science of Scaling. You are such an eclectic collection. You know, you've been on the go-to-market side for quite some time with some remarkable companies, and then, you know, moved into COO, president, CEO, and board member. So you've been on both sides. We all know there's bad advice out there in board meetings. Can you just tell us, like, what is some of the common bad advice that you see?
You know, they all sort of fall in the same category of, you know, these are typically VCs, they're not operators. You have told them you have a problem and you haven't given them confidence that you have any idea of how to solve it. And so all the bad advice comes at that moment in time where your VCs start to tell you, well, here's what you should do. So, you know, one great example, I've been on a board a while ago where the board members started to say, well, let's not focus at all on SMB. Let's only go after the enterprise because we know we have this pipeline. There are all these great logos in it. Let's just focus on that and close that. And anyone who's been an operator knows that is a terrible idea. It sounds good on the surface, but you're walking away from deals that are easier to close to go after deals that are totally hit or miss. I've heard that advice before.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it a ton too. And especially early stage, folks will underestimate how hard that is.
Yes.
I'm picturing a board meeting and you're in there as the independent and you're kind of putting on the stops and you've got the credibility and the founder and the investors brought you in. It was like, we need Jen in the room to kind of check us and to guide us, et cetera. What if they don't have you? Like, what can you guide that founder who's like, okay, it's their first startup. They're an amazing engineer, amazing product person. This is the first time someone gave them 10 million bucks and it's them and their co-founder and maybe like one or two investors and that's it. How do you know if this is the right advice or not?
Yeah, and I think that's a mistake founders make a lot is like, wow, they have a lot of money that they have given me. They must know everything. And I think it's the listening to the advice, making sure you understand it, asking questions, getting it all down. Like, yes, okay, I hear you. I hear what your thoughts are. And then validating it with an operator. So whether that's, you know, your VCs know a lot of, you know, oh, here's a, you know, CRO who just does advising right now. Meet with them. Find someone in your network, in their network, anyone who has been there, done that, who you can say, here's what my VCs are saying. What do you think?
Beautiful. And like, because I totally agree. I mean, when you're early, you may have an independent, you may not have an independent. The advisory board, kind of what you're saying, whether informal advisors who you just have a call with, a checkpoint, or you actually have a formal advisory board, it's just a gem for you.
Totally helpful.
How would you advise that first-time founder to build out their advisory board?
Yeah, I mean, you start with like, what am I, founder person, really good at? And then be honest with yourself. I have never done this. I've never done that. I've never done sales. I've never done marketing. Once you have that kind of list of things that I admit to myself that I don't have expertise in, that's where you go looking for your sort of, I heard someone call it your kitchen cabinet. And so you look for various parts of your kitchen cabinet. I have a marketing person that I trust. I have a sales leader that I trust. And then it becomes an exercise in LinkedIn and networking and who do you know and do you have any advisors? And your VCs will help with this too.
How do you interview them? I mean, you had a lot of CMO experience. Like, how would you guide a product-oriented founder to interview a potential marketing advisor at a Series A stage?
Do you trust that this person is going to give you good advice? Has this person been at the size you're at? Have they grown it from the size you're at to where you're going? Are you willing to, let down your hair and be like, look, I don't know what I'm doing? Like, is this someone you can trust to say, like, I'm terrified? They gave me $10 million. I don't know what to do with it. And that person will be like, I got you. Let's talk it through. Here's a list. Here's what to do next. Here's someone you should go hire, like this profile of your first hire. All of that is based on this relationship. So it's that trust relationship where you can let your hair down, and it's that they have been there, done that at the stage that you're in.
Are you talking once a quarter, once a month? Is it just the CEO that manages these people? Do you spread them across the team? Like, how does it work in your opinion?
It depends. When I first started as CEO, I talked to my advisors. I told them I would say once a month, but it was more like every 2 weeks,
Nice.
depending on what I was going through. If I was raising around, I had an advisor that, was mergers, acquisitions, legal, had all of the finance background. And that was the person I was reaching out to all the time. When we were scaling the sales team, then I was spending a little bit more time with my go-to-market people, like, okay, am I doing the right thing? What should I look for when I interview a sales rep? Those kind of things. Over time, so I've been an advisor also at many companies. What I've seen is in the early stages, I'm just hanging with the CEO. Later on, they start looping me in. Can you meet with my head of sales? Can you meet with my head of marketing? Absolutely. Like, would love to.
Hey, folks, just Mark here. Yeah, build an advisory board from the beginning. It's a huge opportunity. It's not costly. Oftentimes, these people aren't paid in cash. They're paid in equity. And it's really not a crazy amount. They're just looking for some upside in your business. I mean, they're going to spend, like Jen said, like a couple hours a month at most, sometimes a couple hours a quarter. So build that advisory board. Take Jen's advice. Now, here's an area that I've been iterating on in this advisory board situation, because I do see a lot of founders building them. But what happens is they go out and acquire 6 to 8 people. These are like semi-celebrities in their domain. Maybe they were a founder, CEO, famous sales leader from a famous company, and they assemble them and they start talking to them, maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter. And over time, those conversations slow down and stop because the person's maybe not as relevant to their stage, or the CEO just gets too busy. It's 6 to 8 people in relationship with the CEO. I think that's a mistake. So what I advise is, okay, you got your Series A team. You got your head of sales, your marketing, product, customer success, engineering, finance, maybe HR, and your CEO. If you're going to have 6 to 8 advisors, have one per executive. Have an advisor for the sales leader, have an advisor for the marketing leader, have an advisor for the product leader. Point number 1. Point number 2, make it short-term and very specific to what's happening now, the next 6 months. This is the 6-month engagement. We're going to comp you 100 shares a month. And we might renew, we might not. But this is specifically what you're going to do. Our sales leader needs to hire 4 reps over the next 6 months and need to coach the current 4 reps better. So you're going to sit on an hour call every week doing pipeline reviews with the sales leader and doing gone recording reviews with the sales leader to make them a better hirer and a better coach. That's specifically what you're going to do over the next 6 months. So now you've got 6 to 8 people who are deployed effectively across your leadership team, and your leader's definitely going to use them. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to take those 6 people and have an advisory-only meeting with the CEO, no advisees. And everyone's going to talk about what's happening in the function from their perspective. what's happening with the leader from their perspective. It's not selling them out. It's just coaching the CEO more on what's going on. And it provides the CEO with another channel to create alignment through the organization. Yeah, build an advisory board, but set them up to be very effective. More short-term, specific to what we need today, and deployed with each sales leader. Let's get back to Jen.
I think the other thing I'll add, because I think it's important, as a board member and as an operator, I had been an operator, leader of a marketing team, and the board brought in an independent who had go-to-market, in particular, marketing background. When I am in that board member position, I think part of my job is to help the board and the CEO understand whether the marketing person is on the right track. And I think often there's a mistake where an independent board member will come in, maybe it's their first board, and they'll say, oh, my background is marketing, so I am going to force the head of marketing to give me presentation after presentation so that I can dig into the details and like tell them whether they're doing the right thing or not. That is not helpful. That is, in fact, disruptive. Your expertise as the marketer is not to somehow tweak the marketing plan so that it's perfect for what you think, because you're not in the day-to-day anymore. And so to dig in there and say, well, when I was at such and so company, we did it like this. That's useful as a, like, think about that kind of thing. It's not useful as, I think you should shape your marketing team to what I think it should be. Instead, you like, as the VP of marketing, I should think of that independent board member as my partner to help explain to VCs and the founder that what I'm doing makes sense, because none of them have marketing experience to be able to even evaluate. You know, if I say, I want to do a brand campaign, to have an independent board member go, this is definitely the right time to do that. Let's spend 15 minutes next week and I'll share with you some stuff I've learned, and I've got some agencies that I love.
Beautiful. That you have to own it. And so you brought up independent board member. That was an important place that we wanted to go.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Like, how should that independent board member be picked?
Yeah.
How should you use them? Do they just come to the board meeting and talk, or is there more to it?
Yeah, it's a little bit like a pumped up advisor. So, starting with the two things I said about an advisor are the same, I would say, as a founder when you're picking a board member. Someone that you can let your hair down, that you trust when you show your innermost fear of like how hard this job is and you're in charge of everything and you don't always know what you're doing, that they're there for you to be like, I got you. Let me help you work through this. Because as a CEO/founder, you don't have anyone. Like that was actually one of the things as CEO, I was like, oh my God, I have nobody to vent, to be terrified. It's all happy. Everything's happy. Everything's great. It's all great. You need a person you can be like, oh my God, it's terrible. It's all falling apart. What am I doing? And they're like, okay, I've been there. I've done that. Like, I know where you are. Let's talk through it. So that's a big part I have seen in earlier companies of where an independent board member can help. And I do think smaller companies do not leverage this. It's usually in every bylaws and incorporation or whatever. There's always an independent board member seat in there. And very often the board, the founder, don't take advantage of it. It's like free help. Free advising, like someone who cares about your company, who has a lot of experience, that will tell you what to do when you don't know. So I do think founders should think a lot more about it.
Now that we know whether the advice is good or not, and Jen, I love to role play. I don't know if you're up for it, but let's role play it. Let's just have some fun with it. So
sure.
because you've already been there, you're doing it right now. So you're the CEO, and I'm gonna come in. Let's just do it. Are you down?
I'm down.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go.
We'll see how I do.
So Jen, I mean, yeah, it was a great quarter. It's just what's really worrying me is, I mean, you're closing these $5,000 ARR, 100 employee companies, and how long can we do that for? I'm doing my IRR analysis, and according to this, it shows that the ACV needs to be $200,000, not $5,000. So let's just stop wasting time with the SMB and start closing these Fortune 500 companies? Like, what do you think? Jen, this is not good so
it's
far.
It's like my nightmare.
Jen, you can't laugh at the VC. We have to start over. I'm just kidding.
Wait.
Don't cut that. Producer, don't cut that. That was beautiful. All right, here we go. This is real.
Hey.
This is real. Jen, this is a new relationship. Ready? This is a top tier VC. This is serious.
Yeah. You bring up such great points. It's something that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about. So, here's kind of the direction that we're going, but this is definitely like, where we're tracking to. So we're starting with these smaller companies, obviously, because we can do these faster. We're learning a ton. We're getting customers in. We're able to support them. We're growing them. Look at these great NRR percentages we have. Our net retention is off the roof. So that's step one. But I do think over the next 6 quarters, we are really focused on raising the ACV. And we're doing that by upselling the current customers we have, but also by giving, we've got a new sales leader coming in, and she is really working with the sales team on landing bigger so that our ACV starts to go up, even in the smaller deals, because the product is clearly adding value as they are, using the product over time. Now, on the enterprise front, we're definitely starting to test whether this product works in that scenario, but there is a lot to learn before we go wholly after it and leave behind sort of this nice repeatable revenue stream we have at the SMB level. So in the next 6 months, we're going to be looking at having those conversations with Fortune 500 companies, and of course, if you guys have any relationships you want to share with us, we would love to meet with any, head of this, head of that you guys have that's open to having a conversation with a small company. Let us meet them. Let us run through the process. Let us learn what the right thing to do is and how to sell to these larger companies.
Yeah, because I would like to do that, Jen, because I feel like we're just going too slow for that. That just sounds like a sleepy approach. Like the door's going to close on us. Like, as you know, I was the Series A investor in Snowflake, and this is how we did it. I want to get Chris Degnan to talk to you. I mean, do you guys think maybe we could go faster on it? Why don't we just hire 5 enterprise reps?
It's funny because it's true.
You have to coach them. What's the answer?
Yeah.
I mean, you handled the first one beautifully. It's great.
Yeah, you could kind of see what I did. The first thing I did is tell them how right they are. Tell them, make sure that they feel heard, that you heard exactly what they said. They're asking you to go to the enterprise. They're asking you to, do bigger deals. They're you are so right. We are working on that. And that is definitely going to be the focus. But then you're also shaping the reality of how it's done. And then I would say I have a little bit of a leg to stand on, because I can refer to this is how it worked here, this is how it worked there. If you don't have that, there's no reason why you can't say this is great. And if a VC says, "Oh, you should meet with such and so," I would love to meet with this person.
Yeah, I mean, joking aside, Jen kind of crushes this role play, because that is such a pothole. Yeah, okay, fine. It's time to go to the enterprise. But you have to figure it out. You need time to figure it out. Yeah, I know you got to 5 million, you got to 10 million, you got to 500 customers. I know your product works. But you haven't figured out how to sell to the enterprise. That's where a lot of folks get messed up. There's some great work by this HBS professor, Michael Tushman, called the Ambidextrous CEO, if you want to read it. It's also called Ambidextrous Organization, which is essentially scaling the known and learning the new. And that's what you have to do here, is learning the new simultaneously. And it's a huge mistake to show up and be like, all right, we're going into 2025 now, and we're going to do 15 million in the SMB, and we're going to do 5 million in the enterprise, even though we've only sold one enterprise customer in our history. Huge mistake. When I've seen people go to the enterprise, you're signing up for 6 to 12 months of learning. You have to hire probably 1 or 2 enterprise reps. They need to ramp up on your product. They need to ramp up and build a pipeline. They need to make mistakes in terms of what it's like to get through legal and procurement, develop a champion. There's probably some gaps in your product offering that needs to be situated. You have to learn the new competitive landscape. It is a 6 to 12 month journey. So it's like, hey, board, yeah, we're ready to go to the enterprise. So we're opening up budget for 2 enterprise reps. And we're going to commit to revenue numbers once we see these things in place. We have closed 4 enterprise customers. They set the product up correctly, and they're seeing the value prop. That's when we're going to start scaling. I don't know when it's going to be, probably 9 months from now. But here's the milestones that I'm going to update you on when we hire people, when they've created their first opportunities, how those opportunities are going, how the pipeline's moving. If we close loss while they're happening, I'll keep you updated on those. And I hope we hit that milestone in 9 months when we can scale. But up until then, I can't hire 10 enterprise reps. We're not going to be ready. We're going to burn a lot of money. I thought Jen handled that really well. All right, let's get back to her.
Because anyone who really is an operator will really understand. I bet if you met with that person that they mentioned, they would say, oh yeah, man, it's not that easy. You can't just hire 5 reps.
Yes.
Let me tell you how you can get to a point where 5 enterprise reps would make sense to hire.
Yes.
Is the product ready? Are you a big enough company to actually fill out a security questionnaire? Do you even have SOC 2 compliance? There's just this list of things that you've got to have.
Yeah. And Jen, we have to stay serious on one more here that happens a lot. And I just want to get your expertise out there on managing it. So let's pretend it's November and you are in this board meeting, you're presenting your annual plan for the next year. So 2025 coming up. Okay. And you've presented going from, let's say 4 to 10 million. Good.
Yep.
Okay. You present a plan. All right. And it's like, hey, Jen, I'm the board member. All right. Yeah, Jen, this is great, but we just think you're such a special leader and you have such a special company. I think I feel a 4 to 20 this year. Can you go back and sharpen your pencil and let's just accelerate the burn, let's accelerate the hiring, and let's do 4 to 20.
Well, let's take a look at that. Let's run the numbers. Let's look at what it means if, because we've got to obviously quota capacity, the amount of time a rep has to ramp. And, we need to be able to look at, do we have all of the checkbox things that a larger company requires? So we can definitely look at that and see if we can run the numbers and grow faster. My main caveat is, we only have enough money to run for a certain amount of time. So given the market, given, the signals we have, we're pretty confident we can get to 10, but getting to 20 might be a little bit rough. And I wouldn't want to end the year then going, ooh, the run rate, so, what I would recommend is we will put together the aggressive plan and we can look at it next to the good plan. And then one of the things we can do is every quarter we can look and say, do we feel like we need to raise the goals? Do we feel like we're on the aggressive plan path? Because, what I would like to see is in, at the end of Q1, we made our number, or maybe we beat the number so successfully that we go, okay, lean in, time to hire, versus we just squeaked away. It just made the number, but it wasn't as, overwhelming as we wish it was. In that case, I wouldn't necessarily want to lean into higher spend until we start really seeing what's going on in the sales cycle and our ability to close deals accelerate in a way that makes me confident that we can maintain that cost-conscious kind of way of running the company.
Yeah, I bet there's not a single founder CEO that hasn't been in this position. And just to clarify, when I said 4 to 10, I meant they did 4 million this year. They have a plan to do 10 million next year. And the VC's saying, yeah, but can we go from 4 million to 20 million? That happens all the time. And Jen is handling this well. Because what you have to do in this specific case is you need to show the VC the bottoms up math. It's yeah, I get it. Go from 4 to 20. Instead of hire 10 sales reps, just hire 20. It's not that easy. We have to look at how fast have we hired reps historically. If historically we've hired 3 reps a quarter, I'm fine going up to 4 or 5 reps a quarter. I'm not fine going from 3 reps to 10 reps. in one quarter. We just can't like get the recruiting engine going that fast. And then let's talk about feeding them, remember. Okay, so like historically there's been 20 opportunities a quarter created per rep. And a third came from marketing, a third came from SDRs, and a third were self-sourced. Well, like how fast does this bottoms-up plan require us to grow that opportunity generation? If you're asking marketing to grow their opportunity generation by like 20% in a quarter, I'm cool with that. If they have to grow it 120% in a quarter, it's not going to happen. You're just going to burn a lot of money and make reps unsuccessful. And then we have to promote managers too. So it's like we just have to help the board understand the bottoms up math. And if they're absolutely adamant about it, then we're like, okay, then that's fine. We will do it. And Jen did a great job on this. We'll check on each quarter on where we're at. If we're on plan, we'll keep going. If we're ahead of plan, we'll speed up. And if we're behind plan, we'll slow down. Great. So it's like, you want me to go from 4 to 20. And that means I have to go from hiring 3 reps a quarter to 10. That feels crazy, but that's what we need to do. And we need to drive productivity from $250,000 per rep per quarter to $600,000 overnight. That's what you want me to do? I'll do my best. And we have to increase inbound lead flow by 150% overnight. Okay, fine. And then guess what? We come back after the quarter and be like, oh my gosh, we only increase inbound lead flow by 60% in the quarter. And we only increase productivity by 30% in the quarter. No one's getting fired. But it's like now we're helping them see a realistic plan. I thought Jen handled that well. All right, let's get back to Jen.
Because even at 10, we're still going to be, beating the market, beating our competitors, and, growing in a fairly fast clip.
The Sales Evangelist, hosted by Donald Kelly, is brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Each week, Donald interviews the world's best sales experts, successful sellers, sales leaders, and entrepreneurs who share their strategies to succeed in sales right now. Folks like Jeffrey Gitomer, Jill Conrath, Bob Berg, and Guy Kawasaki, to name a few. They share actionable insights and stories that will encourage, challenge, and motivate you to hustle your way to the top income status. If you're someone looking to take off in your sales career and earn the income you deserve, this is the podcast for you. Listen to Sales Evangelist wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. So, to be fair, Jen, like we're having some fun on this episode because we're like living through some war moments, but like VCs are like VCs are super smart. They're amazing at what they do. They're like important part of the ecosystem. Like we wouldn't get to do what we do without venture capital. And we're just kind of just like we poke fun of inexperienced founders and experienced sales and marketing leaders, inexperienced engineers, kind of poking fun at inexperienced VCs too. They're trying. And I still don't really understand why in the last 20 years, it's evolved to the point where, because they're great investors. I don't understand why they move into the boardroom and step beyond their advice. Now, that said, you and I have had some remarkable experiences. I have had some remarkable, like mostly remarkable experiences with investors.
Yeah.
So we can't leave without talking about how do we find those good ones. So like, we've talked a little bit like, I think a lot of founders are surprised that when you're raising money, you actually get to diligence and in a way choose your VC too, if you're lucky. I mean, depending on economic time, it's hard to raise money or easy to raise money, depending on your deal. But like either way, you need to diligence your VC. You've had to do that.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Some of it you can do kind of secretly is the wrong word, as a part of the process. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I've noticed is pay attention to the questions your VCs ask once you get into the diligence. Great example, we have, Cube is like, Snowflake is like Databricks. It's consumption based. So we talk about bookings. We don't actually talk about ARR. We can get to ARR, but we talk about bookings. And you could tell with every VC we met if they got it or not. And, we would hit one and they would keep asking, wait, so what is your ARR? And I would have to repeat myself. We're consumption based. Our revenue is based on usage of the product. And I finally started sending links to like Snowflake blogs where Snowflake talks about how they do consumption based revenue. And, it was very clear to me which VCs were like, oh, okay, got it. I am familiar with this. I understand it. And which VCs were like, I still don't understand how I evaluate you guys. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to work with this VC because they're going to be asking me all these questions. They will be the wrong questions to ask. And then I will constantly be like, well, let me remind you that that's not how we do it. We do it this other way.
Yeah, you should interview your VC. And to Jen's point, you can't always be explicit about it. But like every interaction is a mini interview. And then, God forbid you get to the finish line and you've got multiple term sheets and now the power struggle is shifted. Then, you can go and talk to them. And I love her advice around going to talk to other CEOs. Absolutely. You have to do that regardless. But, the other question you want to ask is a lot of venture capitalists, when they're about to make an investment, some of them have a thesis on what you're doing wrong. And they're underwriting that risk because they think it's easy to fix. So ask them that. Like, what do you see we should be doing? Like, why are you making this investment? Is there anything that like we're off on that you hope that we do? I can give you a real story about HubSpot, Series D, Sequoia, Jim Getz and Pat Grady leading it. They're like, yeah, you're totally messing up your pricing model. You have one dimension, basic, pro, enterprise. You need to add the second dimension based on contacts. We're like, of course, that's a total miss. And they're like, you can be growing faster. We're underwriting this. If we're right, we think we're getting a really good deal. So you just ask the VC. If you disagree with it, I'd be careful. But chances are you're going to learn something really good about your business that you weren't seeing. Let's get back to Jen.
So there's certainly an aspect of the diligence and that experience of the questions they're asking you is a way to evaluate them without them feeling like, without you saying, I am now evaluating you.
That's great advice. And Jen, I'm sure there's a lot of marketing leaders on the rise, kind of you 10 years ago, that would love to be in your seat, that you do one or both, like become CEO and or become board member. And they're kind of one and the same. Like once you make that leap, you're pretty qualified on both sides. But very few marketing leaders can do that. Very few marketing leaders can do that. Can you advise them if they want to go in that direction for their quote unquote like second career? What should they do?
I think on the board side, I think it's just networking. If I look back and say, where did I get these board seats? It's from, I was an operator on a board and got to know one of the VCs on the board pretty substantially. And so then whenever they're in a board, they're thinking about independent board member and they're like, oh my God, we need someone with go-to-market experience. It's like, let me get Jen. Let's get her interviewing. Let's see if that's a fit. So it isn't like, there may be other ways that people get board seats, but those are the only ways I've ever gotten one is through my network.
I don't know if I've actually ever met anyone in the startup ecosystem that didn't eventually want to be an advisor and board member. It sounds like a luxurious job, and it's actually pretty good. It's fun, exciting, interesting. And I think Jen's given some good advice here. I would say this, like, don't feel like you have to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. Even if you have a fancy job, don't be over egotistical about it. Don't feel like you have to be the independent board member for the pre-IPO front page company. You got to start somewhere. And so like, you could just advise anyone. Seed funded business. If you hit it off and get the opportunity, do it. You don't even have to get stock. You probably can easily, but just do it. You don't have to put it on your LinkedIn. A lot of people overthink like, oh, well, then I have to like have my resume and my LinkedIn. And what if it doesn't work? Then don't put it on your LinkedIn. You're helping someone, whatever. So just like, think about just generally in your week, your month, no matter what stage you're at, 90% of your time is on execution. 5% is on getting help from others. Go out, ask advice, get coffees, advisement, whatever. And 5% is giving back in the ecosystem. Who's someone you could be mentoring? No matter what stage you're at, you're a 28-year-old CSM with 2 years of experience. There's someone out there that's starting out, maybe even in your company, that could use your help. 90% execution, 5% learning, from the ecosystem, 5% given back. Try that model. Let's get back to Jen.
So, it's a lot of the reaching out and connecting with VCs, even though you don't necessarily looking for a job right now, but like stay in touch.
Well, thank you, Jen. It is rare to have someone with such an eclectic background that's seen it from every side. Functional leader at the CEO suite, and then on the board. And those are just relationships that are tough to manage. So really appreciate you coming on the show and dropping knowledge on how to work through that.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I could talk forever.
All right, that does it for me, folks. I'd like to thank our showrunner, Matthew Brown. Editing support comes from Pizza Shark Productions. Of course, I want to thank HubSpot for Startups and the HubSpot Podcast Network for keeping the audio on. And by the way, if I'm a huge fan of feedback. And so get this, if you're listening on Spotify right now, check your phone, see that Q&A field? That's a direct line to me and our show. So let us know what you think. All right, I'll see you next week.